Hi, I'm Lindsay Parker. Welcome to another fantastic build. I'm very excited to reunite with some of my hometown heroes. They're from Los Angeles, just like me, LANY, here in New York at Build NYC today. They have, speaking of Los Angeles, they have their sophomore album coming out this Friday. It's called Malibu Nights. They're going to come out and talk to us about the creative process behind it. But before we do, let's throw to a video, Thru These Tears, from the album. Hey. That song was a crowd pleaser. I don't think people at home could see it, but like the whole audience was kind of like bopping like this. Girls over here were auditioning to be your new backup singers. They didn't need the lyric video. They already knew all the words. So congratulations on your new album coming out. It's this Friday, right? Malibu Nights. Now I understand. I'm very interested in the creative process here. That you kind of guys set a deadline for yourselves, like we got 50 days to write an album or something like that. How'd that come about?
Yeah, we like today's October 1st or something. We
October?
probably, I think we always have our next year completely planned out. We have a Google Sheet document that pretty much just tells us where we have to be for the next year every single day. So we came into 2018 and like last year we played 135 shows, which is a lot. And the plan was to kind of chill, relax. I wanted to try a few things in the studio. Before 2018, I had like 2 co-writes in my entire life. Most of everything we had written in our kitchen or in our bedroom. And all the EPs and the first album were made like on a Dell computer. And
You're getting a Dell.
yeah, right. But we wanted to come into the new year and try new things. And all the bands that we aspired to be like and look up to have found a way to reinvent themselves every album and push themselves and progress and evolve. And I wouldn't say that like, we didn't set out to write album 2 this quickly, but it just kind of happened. Like it was kind of like a beautiful accident. And I knew
why 50 days? Why was it this?
Yeah, well, I mean, we knew that we were going to Asia in March, and we knew that we had rehearsal coming up. And I knew that I had about this much time at home, and then we were going on tour. Then we had a guideline or an idea. But I think around Valentine's Day, I kind of lifted up my head because I'd been in the studio every single day. And after every day, I would send these guys like what I would call a skeleton of a song, which is basically a piano vocal or some sort of rough garage band demo of like, here's a song that I wrote today. Here's like the verse, the chorus, the bridge. What do you guys think? And kind of at the end of those 50 days of writing, I think we all looked at each other and like, I think we just kind of wrote album 2 on accident. And so
it wasn't like a deadline that you had to have your album done,
the
delivered
plan,
to the label or anything like that?
No, like the first album came out June 30th of last year. So to turn another album around in just a little over a year is crazy, but I think it's worked out perfectly. And yeah.
Well, I'm interested in this Google spreadsheet of yours.
Yeah.
That's very organized.
It's color-coded and everything.
Really?
Yeah, always evolving.
Yeah, it
multiple
always changes
tabs.
too. Yeah, but like blue is tour, green is tour, red's off days, blue's rehearsals or something like, press. And you got the whole like year planned out. So.
Well, I mean, obviously the stereotype about rock bands is that they aren't responsible or organized. They have managers or labels or publicists to do that for them. Have you always been this, business-like, this professional?
Our manager's the best dude in the world. He's over there.
We had him from day one, so.
Yeah. So he's been our manager from seriously day one before we ever put a song on the internet. And but we're really ambitious and we have big dreams and big goals, and so it's important that we stay on top of things.
What's your number one dream or goal then? Sky's the limit.
Yeah, I think we used to talk about how we would love to win a Grammy or the accolades and the awards, and that's all cool and stuff. But really, we just want to put butts in seats, and we want to play to as many people as possible. And it's always been important for us to work our way through the rooms in every city around the world, so we don't ever want to skip a step. So it's nice to play like 2 Terminal 5s in New York, and then we'll do the next room, and then eventually the Garden. So that's kind of like the vision, right? We want to be in arenas all around the world and eventually stadiums if that's in the stars for us.
Yeah, and I remember we played in Saskatoon in Canada.
Yeah.
And there was one person there and they were at the back of the room. And by the end of the set, they came to the front, which was like a huge win for us.
I had my shirt off.
Yeah.
We were the support act. We played 5 songs.
Best practice we ever had.
It was crazy.
Yeah, but as far as like dreams, like our dream was like in that moment, Madison Square Garden. Like
Yeah.
Paul was hanging from wherever on my kick drum, and we got done. We're like, well, we're just gonna play every show like it's Madison Square Garden.
That's what you got to do. Well, speaking of that and putting butts in seats, you mentioned how many gigs did you do? 135 in a year?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, what would you say is the number one tip for not going insane on the road, or and also self-care on the road when you have a grueling Google spreadsheet filled with a full schedule like that?
I think we're still like learning how to do it. It's a massive learning process. But the most important thing is to surround yourself with good people, and we make sure that our team is really tight and lots of accountability. Everybody's looking out for each other, making sure that getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, not drinking too much of the other stuff. Just like staying healthy yeah. I mean, there's little things, practical things. Like. If you do travel to different time zones, it's probably smart to go straight to the gym and try to like get yourself tired, if that makes sense. Like it's just dumb stuff that we're kind of learning. But ultimately, no matter how hard it is on the road, it's such a gift to be able to do this. And so no matter how tough it is, when you put it into perspective, it's the greatest thing in the world.
What would you guys say is the best thing about being on the road, and not to be negative, but the worst? What's the most difficult part?
Well, I mean, this is amazing because I get to like see my people here and I recognize faces, and like it's cool to be back in New York. And once you start playing a city more than once, you start really kind of developing a bond with each person in the city. And then there's some people that will travel like around and go to like a lot of the shows on tour, which is so cool. A lot of times the barricade looks the same every night because it's the same people, and it's so cool. But that's the best, is being able to really see your family on the road and be like, we're in this together. I guess the worst would be not seeing your family back home. And I think like from August to December last year, I slept in my bed one time in Malibu. Wow. So like it was, it's a lot, but it is what it is. And like I said, it's a gift. I don't want to sit here and
Of course.
like try to complain or anything like that.
What's on your tour rider? Or what's the craziest thing, or the funniest thing, or the most unexpected thing?
Yeah, we don't really have anything. We're not like into,
The
blue
green
M&Ms only yet.
Yeah,
We're not
okay.
like that.
That's your next goal, is when you start having...
I mean, it's actually really practical stuff. It's really boring, but it's like,
healthy.
can we get some like lunch meat, avocados, yogurt?
I guess I've had a season where I had hard-boiled eggs on there. I don't know if it's not
Those are
super
kind of
weird,
smelly.
Well,
They don't
it's
smell good at all.
protein. Proteins
but yeah, that's a
He
tough
was doing
smell.
postcards for a little while, which was kind of cool.
with the stamps on them.
If it's possible, yeah.
That's a good request. Speaking about the live thing, there, you said we were talking about accolades and how maybe they don't mean that much to you compared to other things. But Rolling Stone did name you best stage presence at the Governor's Ball out here recently. So obviously you're known for being great live performers. How do you psych yourself up for a concert, particularly when you have to kind of do it so often?
Yeah, well, from the very beginning, it was interesting because before LANY, I was like doing singer-songwriter stuff, and it wasn't going well at all. And I remember it would like, I'd be begging people to come see me play. And one thing that we set out to do is we never wanted to ask anyone to come to our show. People should be asking us to play a show. And so we put our first songs on the internet in 2014, but we didn't play our first show till February 2015, and that was kind of on purpose. We wanted to give people time to kind of fall in love with the music and what we're doing, and then create a demand for a show. But all that to say, like, our show is the most important thing apart from the music, obviously, or like the songs. But like the first month, January 2015, we spent in basically a glorified concrete box just practicing all day, every day. I would video our rehearsals because I knew I needed to look coordinated and not like an awkward goon. And so we would watch those back. And then, I remember the first probably 50 shows, my knees would shake and like my legs would just be all twitchy, and I was really nervous. But you do something enough times and you really kind of start to like find a groove and fall into it. And then I began to become like confident and really believing in what we were doing. And so
Yeah, and it's fun, like, whether we're tired or got so much energy before I go on to always, like, remember why we do it. And it's fun to go out there and just kind of pour everything you have into the fans that are taking time out of their day, spending money on tickets. And it's like, in that moment, it's you and the fans that aren't anywhere else in the world. It's just you right there. So it's like, oh, it's such a joy. It's like those are the fans out there, and we're all like family for like a few hours.
Yeah, it really is perspective. I mean, and a lot of times you walk out there and you're really tired, but your people can give you a lot of energy, and so that's always really nice.
Well, you obviously have very devoted fans. Do you have any touching or fun or interesting stories about fans who have reached out to you either personally or via social media who have told you how your music has helped them or touched them?
Absolutely, and I think like some of those stories are probably trusted, confidentially, and I want to respect that. But there's a lot of kids who find a lot of purpose and a lot of identity in the songs that we make. And I remember growing up, I would have the same feeling towards my bands and the artists that I loved. And that's, that keeps us kind of doing what we do. And but just other fun things like people will get tattoos of our handwriting or things that mean something to them, and that's really cool. And lots of fan art. I feel like our fan base is particularly artistically inclined, and everyone's painting or drawing or making something on a computer. And I've always tried to build that into our culture, to show that a lot of attention, especially because the way I communicate with you guys is through the internet. And, when I see that art, I'm really intentional in liking it and retweeting it and kind of, really building that into our culture, people being creative and using their gifts.
Do you regram that stuff or put on Instagram? Is there places we can look at that?
Yeah, our Twitter is an easy place to kind of just reshare things and be able to like and tweet back and comment and stuff like that.
So you mentioned that some of these fans are reaching out to you and saying that your songs touch them in a way that you were touched by artists when you were younger. What were some of those artists that really inspired you?
Well, Alicia Keys made piano cool for me. I grew up in a really strict household where my mom forced me to play classical piano at the age of 5, and up until that, piano to me was associated with khaki pants and old white people and going to piano competitions and being really polite. And then I watched her Unplugged on MTV, and I was like, oh my God, piano's not dumb, and this is cool. And then Chris Martin, obviously just a great front man and somebody who else made the piano really cool for me. And I'm sure these guys would have different answers.
Yeah, my senior trip in high school, I went to see U2 in Boston, and I remember I was section 309, the very nosebleeds, and it was the most amazing thing ever. And I remember in that moment being man, I want to make music where I can make somebody feel the way they're making me feel, the hope in it. And then on the other side, the Chili Peppers, they were just so quirky, and I was I love being quirky, I love being sweet, and those my two bands I just followed so hard forever.
And you?
Yeah, my parents and especially my uncle introduced me to a lot of music. As a kid, I listened to a lot of 80s music, and I just remember being really affected by the way things sounded. And so that's what I love, and that's what I love about being in this band. It's
You mean the production?
Yeah, production and just the way it's brought to you. And so
Very cool. Well, that brings me to another question. You'd mentioned that you like bands that reinvent themselves from album to album, and I was looking at the producer you worked with on this album on Malibu Nights is Mike Crossy.
Yep.
And he worked on two bands that I think totally always do that, which is the 1975 and the Arctic Monkeys. So what made you want to work with him, and what was that like?
Well, I mean, we met with a few. Another guy that we worked on, we put out a song today called If You See Her, and Malay is the guy who produced Channel Orange, which is one of my favorite albums of all time. And that was just a dream to even be in the room with him. And we had brought a couple songs that we had written, and he really singled out If You See Her and let's start production on this song. And that was wicked. But ultimately, Mike Crossy said something to the three of us that I think really resonated with us. And it sounds funny to say, but he's LANY to me is a really good Italian dish. There's not a ton going on, but the ingredients, there's 5 main ingredients, and it's our job to make these 5 main ingredients the best they can possibly be. And that was such a nice kind of segue into our relationship with him. There was like a real clear vision and understanding of how we were going to approach each song and playing to our strengths. And then, working with someone older and wiser and who has more experience is, something that we want to do for the rest of our lives and really surround ourselves with people who are better than us. And he was able to take what we're good at and make us even better at it. And then the things that we aren't good at and even try to like improve that. And so that was cool.
What would you say is the biggest artistic shift from your first album to this one?
Jake's playing a ton of drums on this album. I don't know if, I just remember being in the studio, just be like, wow, Jake is playing so many drums. And that's really cool because in the past, we were working out of like a kitchen or a bedroom and we didn't have like the luxury to set up all these drum kits and mic it the way that we needed to or should have, or I don't know. But he's playing a ton of drums, and we also have a lot of guitar on the album, which is really cool. Something that we haven't had a ton of in the past. I think.
And one thing also, because with Mike, our old stuff, we would have like so many like minimal tracks, and now because like we're talking about a lot of drums, there's just like a lot of layers. So now it's like our tracks have like tons of tracks to them. We're like, oh, we never had that.
Was there any like one thing you'd always wanted to try in the studio that you didn't have the luxury of doing before, that you were like, finally I get to do this?
I don't think so. Like Les is always fishing out so many things for us, and if I have like an idea, he's figuring out a way to make it happen. I think the best thing about this new album is, one, sophomore albums can be daunting for bands, and I feel like we absolutely crushed it, if I'm allowed to say that. And secondly, while it is an evolution and you can see a lot of growth, I think we stayed really true to who we are. I think we made the best LANY album like ever, and that's really important. We don't want to be anybody else. We don't want to look or sound like anyone else. We love who we are, and we just want to be the best version of us, and I think we really, really nailed that on this album.
And what has been the fan response so far to the songs that are out? So far, pretty good.
Yeah.
They're all like, yes.
Yeah. So I think it's been really good.
Well, I'm going to definitely throw the audience in a minute because I know they have questions for you. But the last question I wanted to ask you regarding the inspirations behind this album is, like, what lyrically was inspiring you when you were writing for it?
I think it's like, if you listen to it, it's pretty obvious, the things that I was going through and the things that I was thinking. I sure hope it is, because I take pride in like conveying a simple message and being really clear about what I'm trying to say. But yeah, man, it's just about kind of going through some disappointment and some heartbreak, and I wrote from that perspective, and I think that no matter where anyone is in life, I think they can really relate to that. I think it's a pretty universal theme.
Was it therapeutic or cathartic for you to do this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times before even writing a song, I found that the more I talked before we even touched a note on the piano, the better the song would like normally be. For If You See Her, I wrote it with a girl named Emily Warren, who's an amazing songwriter and artist. And that day was there's a few, like, during this window of time of writing, there's a few moments that were really kind of like turnaround moments, and this was one of them. But that day, we just talked for like 2 hours before even touching a note on the piano. And the last thing I said was, if you see her, let her know I'm a good guy having a hard time. And then we were like, if you see her, bang, let's do it. And then we just sat down and wrote the rest of it.
And the rest was history.
That's right.
All right, I know there's people in the audience who have questions for you and are very excited to ask them. So who do we have here first?
What's up?
Hey, how are you?
It's so cool of you all to be here.
Yeah.
I wanted to know what inspired the title of Malibu Nights.
That's a good question. The working title was actually January, because most of the songs were written in January. And there's a song on the album called Valentine's Day, which is the last song that we wrote for the album. We were all in LA, and we were actually supposed to be working with someone that day, and he canceled on us. And so we just wrote our own song called Valentine's Day, and that's why it's called Valentine's Day. But I think, like, we've all had a January, whether it was actually January or if it was like September of 2016 or whatever. We've all had that month where just you can't catch a break, it feels like. And you kind of feel like, man, I've been beaten up and broken down, and like I just could really use a win right now. And so that was going to be the idea for January. But we have this house that we've lived in since the end of 2015, and it's tucked away in this little nook of Malibu, and that's where I still live, and I just felt like Malibu Nights was more indicative of the vibe and the theme of the album, so we went with that instead.
That's lovely. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
you.
Good question.
Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Hi.
What's up?
So you've kind of already talked about the different venues and festivals you've been playing. I'm wondering if you could talk about the distinctions of playing like festivals versus, say, your own headlining shows, and like what you bring to each.
Yeah, well, Gov Ball was actually amazing. It was our first time there. I've never even been to Gov Ball, but you hear about it. I feel like it's the Coachella of the East Coast. But that was particularly fun, and we had a great time. Most of the time, festivals are fun, but you do lack a sort of creative control. You're on somebody else's watch. You're on somebody else's stage most of the time. We haven't headlined a festival yet. So when you are on your own tour, you've got your production and your stage design that you've come up with, and you've got your set flow, and it's everyone there at your show is there to see you. Where sometimes at festivals, people are like, oh, like I might go check out LANY. I never really heard of them, but one of my friends says they're all right. You know what I mean? So you get a different kind of feeling from people in the crowd. But both are super important. I think festivals have allowed us to sell out rooms later in the year in like the same city that we played in, if that makes sense.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, and one thing about the festival is it's fun because when we're playing our show, it's we got like the fans coming to us, but festival it's like a lot of people that filter through. It might be their first time ever hearing us, so we really want to deliver. So we have a fan for life after that day. So it's a fun.
And also
opportunity.
like being fans of other people in music, sometimes people are on the bill and you get to run into them at catering. You're like, bro, what's up?
Oh, can you mention one that you were excited to meet?
I don't know. Oh yeah, I went up to Chance throughout. I went up to Chance and I think I blacked out. I can't remember what I said to him. But he like goes to Bonnaroo every year. He wasn't even playing. It's just like the one festival he goes to, and he's right by our bus. And I'm like, know his really good friend, and his manager likes our songs. And I think I said some of those things to him, but I also have no idea because I blacked out.
Jake and I had a pretty big one for the both of us. It was
for you.
Phoenix.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Phoenix.
Phoenix.
They're awesome, yes.
Yeah, they
Such
would like
nice guys.
they watched our set
So
in
nice.
Malaysia, which was really cool.
Wow.
And then
Miles Rogers.
at Coachella, I was watching YouTube. We were like backstage and have this YouTube screen so you could watch who's playing the YouTube stage. Or I don't know if it was a stage, but Post Malone was on it. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was watching it. I was waiting for my wife, and someone like tapped my shoulder or didn't tap, ran into me. Was like, "Oh, excuse me," and I looked back and it was Chris Martin.
Oh, wow.
I would have died.
Yeah, I almost did. I was in shock.
Rubbing shoulders with the stars. Okay, we have time for one more question. Hello.
Hi.
Nice belt.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm digging it.
I was just wondering, I guess kind of a similar question, but what you're most excited for your fall tour and what you guys have planned.
Yeah, this fall tour is it's fun because it's very purposeful how few cities we're playing. Because we're releasing an album in October and everyone kind of shuts off from the world around Thanksgiving to Christmas. But it was really important for us to still go out and play kind of what we would consider major markets for us. So it's fun to be like, yeah, we got like 6 or 7 cities in Europe and in North America to really crush it. And next year, we played 135 shows last year. We will be playing more than that next year, and we are going to announce like the cities for that soon. But I think this run, kind of as a celebration of Malibu Nights and playing it for the first time really quickly, like our first show is October 8th in London, which is 3 days after our album comes out. So it'll be really interesting, and obviously people will learn the album as we're on tour.
And we're excited because we're putting on like our biggest and best show yet, like with our new stage design and stuff. Like we can't wait to share that with the fans.
Got a lot of lights. Yeah, thanks.
Well, congratulations on all your success and on Malibu Nights coming out, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the road. Thank you, everybody who came and
Thanks,
sang
guys.
along.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
Like
for
your
watching
shirt.
at home. Take care.